The small patrol ship moved slowly through the darkness of space. Inside, Lieutenant Park sat alone in his chair, watching the stars pass by through the window. He had been flying for 6 hours now, and nothing interesting had happened. This was normal. Most patrol missions were boring. He checked his scanner again and saw nothing but empty space and floating rocks. Was 32 years old. He had been a pilot in the Galactic Union for 10 years. He was good at his job, but he was tired of the same routine every day. Fly out, check the area, fly back, sleep, do it again. Sometimes he wondered if this was all his life would ever be. He was about to turn his ship around and head home when his scanner made a strange sound. Looked at the screen and saw something unexpected. There was a signal coming from a small moon nearby. It was a distress signal. Someone was calling for help. Did not think for long. He changed his direction and flew toward the moon. The Galactic Union had rules about distress signals. All pilots must respond, but even without the rules would have gone anyway. Someone needed help. That was enough reason. The moon was small and there was no air, no water, no life. Just dust and rocks under a black sky. Landed his ship carefully and put on his space suit. He stepped outside and followed the signal on his device. He found the crashed ship after walking for 10 minutes. It was unlike anything he had seen before. The metal was not really metal. It looked alive somehow, with smooth curves and colors that shifted in the light. Half of it was buried in the dust. The other half was broken open like an egg. Climbed inside carefully. The ship was dark and quiet. He turned on his light and looked around. There were strange symbols on the walls. The chairs were shaped wrong for human bodies. This was an alien ship, but not from any species he knew. Then he heard it, a small sound, like crying but musical, like someone singing a sad song very quietly. He followed the sound deeper into the ship. He moved broken pieces of wall out of his way. He climbed over fallen equipment. And then, in a small corner behind a collapsed door, he found her. She was small, very small, maybe the size of a human child of 4 or 5 years, but she was not human. Her skin was pale and seemed to glow softly. It changed colors as he watched, moving from white to light purple too. She had 4 eyes, all silver, all looking at him with fear. Her body was thin and delicate, and she was hurt. Something like blood was coming from a wound on her arm, but it was not red. It was bright, like liquid light. Like someone had put starlight in her body and now it was leaking out. Did not know what species she was. He did not know if she was dangerous. He did not know anything about her biology or if he could even help her. But he looked at those 4 frightened eyes, and he saw something he understood perfectly. She was a scared child, alone, hurt, waiting for someone to help her. Knelt down slowly. He made his voice soft and gentle. "It's okay," he said, even though he knew she could not understand him. "I'm not going to hurt you, I'm going to help you." She made a small chirping sound. Her skin flickered to a lighter color. She was still afraid, but she did not run. Took off his outer jacket and wrapped it around her carefully. She was cold, so cold. He picked her up gently, holding her against his chest. She weighed almost nothing. Her 4 eyes never left his face. He carried her back to his ship. Once inside, he turned up the heat and laid her on his emergency bed. Then he opened his medical kit and looked at what he had. Basic supplies, bandages, medicine made for humans. He did not know if any of it would work on her. But he had to try. For the next 3 hours worked. He cleaned her wound as carefully as he could. The bright liquid blood slowly stopped flowing. He wrapped bandages around her arm. He gave her water and she drank a little. He covered her with a thermal blanket to keep her warm. Slowly, very slowly, she stopped shaking. Her skin changed from scared white to a calmer purple. Her breathing became steady. She was not going to die, not today. Sat down next to her, exhausted. He had not slept in almost 20 hours, but he could not sleep now. He had to watch her, make sure she was okay. The little alien looked up at him. One of her small hands reached out and touched his arm. She made a soft musical sound. It was not words, but understood anyway. "Thank you." He smiled at her. "You're welcome," he said. "You're safe now." She did not understand his words either, but she understood his tone. Her skin shifted to a soft, warm pink. She closed her 4 silver eyes and fell asleep. Watched her sleep. He thought about what to do next. He should contact the Galactic Union, report what happened, ask for instructions, but his communication system was not working well this far out. He would have to wait until morning. For now, he just watched her, this strange little creature from the stars. She was so small, so fragile. He felt something protective growing in his chest, a feeling he did not expect. He decided to give her a name, something to call her until he found out her real name. He said quietly, it meant spring in his language, new beginnings, new life. She slept peacefully, her skin glowing soft pink in the darkness of the ship. Did not know it yet, but he had just changed his life forever. The little girl he had saved was not just any alien child. She was the daughter of an empress, and her mother was already looking for her. 3 days passed on the small patrol ship. 3 days of waiting, healing, and learning. Shared his food with. He did not have much, only emergency supplies meant for one person, but he gave her half of everything. She ate slowly, carefully, watching him with her 4 silver eyes. Some foods she liked. Some foods made her skin turn green with disgust, learned quickly which was which. They could not speak to each other with words. Her language was made of musical sounds, clicks, and chirps. His language was made of sounds she could not copy, but they found other ways to communicate. Pointed at things and said their names. "Ship," he said, pointing at the walls. "Food," he said, holding up a nutrition bar. "Water," he said, offering her a cup, repeated the sounds as best she could. "Yud, Wa." Her accent was strange but beautiful, like someone singing the words instead of speaking them. And taught him too. Her people spoke partly with colors. When her skin turned pink, she was happy. Blue meant sad or worried. White meant scared. Green meant she did not like something. Yellow meant she was curious. Purple seemed to be her normal, calm color. On the second day, made her laugh for the first time. He was trying to fix a broken part of his ship and hit his head on a low pipe. He said a bad word in his language and rubbed his head with a painful expression, made a sound like bells ringing. Her skin turned bright gold. She was laughing. Smiled despite the pain. "You think that's funny?" he asked. She laughed again and pointed at his head. "You?" she asked. "No, that's my head. Eid," she repeated, still glowing gold with amusement. By the 3rd day, her wound was healing well. The strange glowing blood had stopped leaking. She was moving around the ship with curiosity, touching everything, asking what, in her musical voice over and over. Was tired but happy. He had almost forgotten about contacting the Galactic Union. He had almost forgotten about his normal life. Taking care of this little alien girl had become his whole world. On the 4th day, everything changed. Was teaching how to play a simple hand game when his ship suddenly shook. The lights flickered. A loud alarm started beeping. He jumped up and ran to the control room. His heart stopped. Through the window, he saw a ship, but calling it a ship was like calling an ocean a puddle. It was enormous. It filled the entire sky above them. It was beautiful in a terrifying way, made of the same organic material as the crashed ship he had found in. Colors moved across its surface like living things. Before could do anything, a blue light surrounded his ship. He tried to start the engines, but they would not respond. His ship was being pulled upward, toward the giant vessel. Ran into the control room. When she saw the ship through the window, her skin turned pure white. She was terrified, but she also made a sound had not heard before, a word in her language, one word repeated 3 times. Did not understand the word, but he understood her fear. He picked her up and held her close. "It's okay," he said. I won't let anyone hurt you." His ship was pulled into a large opening in the giant vessel. They landed in a huge docking area with a loud thump. Then there was silence. For a moment nothing happened, then heard footsteps, many footsteps coming closer. The door of his ship was forced open from outside. Bright light flooded in, had to cover his eyes. When he could see again, he found himself surrounded by soldiers. They were tall, much taller than him, with the same glowing skin as. Their armor seemed to be made of living crystal. Their weapons hummed with an energy that made his teeth hurt. They shouted commands at him in their musical language. He did not understand the words, but he understood the meaning. Surrender, give up the child, do not move. Did not surrender. He did not give up. Instead, he stood in front of her, blocking her from the soldiers with his body. One soldier stepped forward and raised its weapon. It pointed directly at its chest. Screamed. The sound was louder than anything had ever heard. It was not just a scream. It was something more. Every light in the area exploded. Glass shattered. The soldiers stumbled backward, holding their heads. Then suddenly, everything went quiet. Someone new was coming. The soldiers moved aside quickly, making a path. They lowered their heads in respect, in fear, in worship. Saw her then, the Empress. She was tall, almost 7 feet. Her skin was like the night sky filled with stars, dark blue and covered with tiny points of light. Her eyes burned like 2 small suns, golden and powerful. She wore robes that seemed to be made of liquid silver, flowing around her body like water. She was the most beautiful and the most terrifying thing had ever seen. She walked toward them slowly. Her eyes were on first, then they moved too. Was making sounds again. Words in her language, spoken quickly, desperately. She pointed at again and again. The Empress listened. Her face showed no emotion. When finished speaking, the Empress looked at for a long time. Her burning eyes studied him like he was a strange insect she had never seen before. Then she spoke. Her voice was deep and musical, like a river made of sound, and she spoke in standard, the common language of the Galactic Union. "You saved her." Was surprised she could speak his language, but he did not show it. "Yes," he said. "Why?" The Empress tilted her head. "Your species has no alliance with us. You gain nothing from this. Why did you save her?" Thought about the question. He thought about finding alone and scared. He thought about her 4 silver eyes looking up at him with fear. He thought about her laugh, like bells ringing. "She was hurt," he said simply. "She was alone. A child needed help, that was enough." The Empress stared at him. Her starlight skin flickered with colors he could not read. She was silent for what felt like a very long time. Then she turned to her soldiers and spoke a command in her language. The soldiers immediately formed a circle around, not threatening now, protecting. Ran to her mother, and the Empress knelt down to hold her daughter. For just a moment the terrifying ruler looked like any mother holding her child, relieved, grateful, loving. Then she stood up and looked at again. "You will come with us," she said. Knew it was not a request. He was not being asked. He was being told. He looked at who was holding her mother's hand, but looking back at him with worried silver eyes. Her skin was flickering between purple and blue, calm but worried. Nodded slowly. He did not have a choice, but somewhere deep inside he was not sure he wanted one. His old life was over. Something new was beginning. The journey through space took 2 days. Was given a room on the giant ship. It was comfortable with a soft bed and warm blankets. Food was brought to him 3 times a day, but the door would not open from inside. He was a prisoner, even if they did not call him one. Visited him every few hours. She would sit next to him and show him things, pictures of her home, toys that floated in the air, a small pet that looked like a ball of light with tiny wings. She talked to him in her musical language, and even though he did not understand most of the words, he understood that she was trying to make him feel better. Her skin was always pink when she was with him, happy. On the third day, they arrived at her world, stood at the window of his room, and forgot how to breathe. The planet was unlike anything he had ever seen. Islands floated in the sky, hundreds of them, maybe thousands. They hung above an endless ocean that was silver instead of blue. Bridges of pure light connected the islands to each other. Ships moved between them like birds flying through clouds. Everything glowed with soft, beautiful colors. It was like a dream he never wanted to wake up from. The ship landed on the largest island, was led outside by guards, but they were gentle now. They did not push him or threaten him. They walked beside him like escorts, not captors. The air was sweet and clean. The sky was purple, filled with 3 small moons. Strange flowers grew everywhere, changing colors as he watched. Music seemed to come from the ground itself, soft and distant, like the whole world was singing. They took him to the palace. Had seen buildings before. He had seen skyscrapers and monuments and ancient temples, but the palace was something beyond all of that. It rose from the ground like a frozen song, towers twisting toward the sky in impossible shapes. The walls seemed to be made of glass and light and something else he could not name. It was alive. He was sure of it. The building was alive. His room in the palace was larger than his entire apartment building back on Earth. The bed could hold 10 people. The windows showed a view of the silver ocean far below. Servants came and went silently, bringing food and clothes and anything he might need. They communicated through colors and gestures, always polite, always helpful. But he could not leave. Every door was locked. Every window was sealed. When he asked to contact the Galactic Union, the servants looked confused. When he asked to see his ship, they gently guided him back to his room. When he asked to speak to the Empress, they bowed and said words he did not understand. Days passed, tried to learn their language. He walked around his room, touching things, nomming them, repeating words until his throat hurt. He ate their food, which was strange but good. He slept in the softest bed he had ever known. And he waited. On the 10th day, the Empress called for him. Guards led him through long hallways filled with art and light. Other aliens watched him pass. Some looked curious. Some looked angry. Some looked disgusted. He was human. He was different. He did not belong here. The throne room was enormous. The ceiling was so high could not see it. Hundreds of nobles stood along the walls, their starlight skin flickering with hidden emotions. At the far end, on a throne that seemed to breathe and move, sat Empress. She was just as beautiful and terrifying as before. Her sun-gold eyes watched him as he walked toward her. Her expression showed nothing. Stopped in front of the throne and stood straight. He was not going to bow. He was not her subject. A long silence followed. The nobles whispered to each other. The Empress studied him like a puzzle she was trying to solve. Finally she spoke. "Are you comfortable?" "I am a prisoner," said. His voice was calm. "Prisoners are never comfortable." "You are an honored guest. Guests can leave." Something flickered across her face. Almost a smile, almost respect. "You are brave, human, or foolish. I have not decided which." "Maybe both," said. This time she did smile, just a little. It changed her face completely, making her look younger, softer. "You saved my daughter's life," she said. "Among my people, this creates something we call a life bond. You are now connected to her. Your thread is woven into hers. To send you away would be to cut that thread. It would hurt her." Frowned. "I have a life, a job, a home. People will look for me." "Your Galactic Union has been informed that you died in an accident in the asteroid belt. Your ship was destroyed. Your body was lost. They have already held a memorial for you." The words hit like a punch. Dead. They thought he was dead. His mother would be told. His friends. Everyone who knew him would believe he was gone. "You had no right to do that," he said. His voice was shaking now. "I protect what is mine," the Empress said calmly. "And whether you like it or not, you are now mine to protect." Before could argue, the doors of the throne room burst open. Ran inside, ignoring the guards, ignoring the nobles, ignoring everything except him. She ran straight to and grabbed his hand. "Ho," she said happily. Her skin was bright gold with joy. Stay with." Looked down at her. 4 silver eyes looked back, full of hope and love. She had been so scared when he found her, so alone. Now she was smiling, glowing, happy. Because of him. He looked up at the Empress. Her expression had changed while watching her daughter. The cold ruler was gone. In her place was a mother who loved her child more than anything. Thought about his old life, the boring patrols, the empty apartment, the loneliness he never talked about. Then he thought about this strange world, the floating islands, the silver ocean, a little girl who glowed pink whenever she saw him. "I want to contact my mother," he said to the Empress. "I want her to know I am alive, and I want to learn your language properly. If I am going to stay here, I need to understand what people are saying." The Empress raised one eyebrow. "You agree to stay?" Squeezed small hand. "I didn't say that, but I am not going to fight it, not yet, not while she needs me." Did not understand the words, but she understood the feeling. She hugged his leg tightly, her skin blazing with happiness. The Empress nodded slowly. "Your requests are reasonable. I will allow you to send a message to your mother, and tutors will be provided for language lessons." She paused. "Perhaps you are not so foolish after all, Park." "Perhaps," he said. And for the first time since arriving on this strange world, he felt something he did not expect. Hope. 3 months changed everything. Learned their language slowly at first, then faster and faster. He studied for hours every day with patient tutors who never got angry at his mistakes. Their language was musical, full of rises and falls, like singing instead of talking. He was not good at the musical parts, but he learned enough to understand and be understood. He learned their customs too, how to greet people based on their rank, how to eat properly at formal dinners, how to show respect without bowing because bowing meant something different here than it did on Earth. He made mistakes often and some of the nobles laughed at him, but he kept trying. Was always with him. She became his shadow, following him everywhere, holding his hand during walks through the floating gardens, sitting next to him during meals. She taught him words her tutors did not know. Funny words, rude words, secret words that children whispered to each other when adults were not listening. Her skin was almost always pink around him now, happy pink, safe pink. The court watched him with many different eyes. Some were curious about this strange human who had saved their princess. Some were angry that an outsider was so close to the royal family. Some were jealous. Some were afraid. Felt their stares everywhere he went, but he did not let it bother him. He had survived worse things than mean looks. The Empress watched him too. She called him to her private room sometimes, just to talk. She asked about Earth, about humans, about his life before the crash. He answered honestly. He told her about his mother, who was old now and lived alone in a small apartment. He told her about being a pilot, about the loneliness of space, about the empty feeling he had carried for years without knowing its name. She listened carefully. Her expression rarely changed, but her skin sometimes flickered with colors he was starting to understand. Blue when he talked about sad things, gold when he made her laugh with a funny story, purple when she was thinking deeply about something. She was not just a ruler, he realized. She was also alone. Her husband had died many years ago, killed by enemies she did not name. She had raised by herself while running an empire of 1,000 worlds. She had not trusted anyone in a long time. Maybe that was why she kept him here, not just but for herself. Did not know how to feel about that. Then came the Festival of Lights. It was a holiday celebrating the birth of their world. The floating islands were decorated with millions of glowing flowers. Music filled the air. Everyone dressed in their finest clothes and gathered in the palace gardens to watch the sky fill with colors. stood with near a fountain that sprayed silver water into the air. The Empress was somewhere in the crowd, greeting nobles and accepting gifts. Guards stood everywhere, watching carefully. But not carefully enough. The attack came without warning. One moment everything was peaceful. The next moment there was screaming, explosions of light, bodies falling, guards running. Grabbed without thinking, he pulled her close and ran. He did not know where he was going. He just knew he had to get her away from the chaos. They ran through gardens filled with smoke, past broken fountains and shattered statues, past bodies that did not move. Heart was pounding so hard he thought it would break his chest. They reached a bridge of light that connected to a smaller island, started to cross but stopped. 3 figures stood at the other end. They were like everyone else here, but their armor was black instead of crystal. Their weapons were pointed at and they were not guards. They were assassins. "Give us the child," one of them said. His voice was cold and empty. "Give her to us and you can live." Looked at, her skin had turned pure white. She was shaking, holding onto him so tightly her small fingers hurt his arm. Her 4 silver eyes were wide with terror. He looked back at the assassins. "No," he said. The assassin laughed. It was an ugly sound like breaking glass. "You are human, weak, fragile, you cannot fight us. Give us the child." Gently pushed behind him. "Run," he whispered to her. She did not move. The assassins walked closer. They were not worried. Why would they be? He was just a human, small, slow, soft. They could kill him with one hand. They did not know about the blade. Had hidden it in his boot 3 months ago, the day he arrived. Old habit from his military training. Always carry a weapon. Always be ready. He never thought he would need it. Now he was glad he had it. The first assassin attacked. He moved fast, faster than any human could move, but was not trying to be faster. He was trying to be smarter. He dropped to the ground at the last moment. The assassin's blade cut the air where his head had been. Rolled, pulled his knife from his boot, and cut the back of the assassin's leg as he passed. The assassin screamed and fell. The other 2 attacked together, could not dodge both. A blade cut his arm. Another cut his side. Pain exploded through his body. Blood, red human blood, splashed on the bridge. But he did not fall. He kept fighting. Humans were fragile. Humans were weak. But humans could also ignore pain in ways other species could not understand. They could keep moving when their bodies screamed to stop. They could fight through injuries that would make others surrender. Fought like an animal. He was not trying to win. He was just trying to survive long enough for help to arrive. Every second stayed alive was a victory. The second assassin fell when put his knife into the gap between his armor plates. The third assassin backed away, suddenly afraid. This human was bleeding from a dozen wounds. He could barely stand, but he was still holding his knife, still standing between the assassin and the child. The assassin raised his weapon to strike a killing blow. A beam of light hit him from behind. He collapsed without a sound. Imperial guards flooded the bridge. They surrounded the fallen assassins. They checked wounds. They comforted who was crying now, her skin flickering through every color of fear. And then the Empress arrived. She walked through her guards like they were not there. Her eyes swept across the scene. 3 assassins unconscious or dead. Her daughter safe but crying. And 1 human covered in blood still standing in front of like a shield. Her skin shifted through colors faster than could follow. Then she did something no one expected. She walked to him. She put her hands on both sides of his face. She pressed her forehead against his. The contact was warm, electric. He could feel something passing between them, something he did not have words for. "Life bond," she whispered. The word meant more than protection now. It meant family. It meant forever. Then his legs gave out, and everything went dark. When he woke up 3 days later in a medical room, was sleeping in a chair next to his bed. Her small hand was holding his. Even in sleep, her skin was soft pink. Safe, happy home. Closed his eyes and let himself rest. For the first time in his life, he felt like he belonged somewhere. He was not going to let anyone take that away. The trial happened 1 week after woke up. The 3 assassins were brought before the court in chains made of light. They were nobles, it turned out, high-ranking members of powerful families who believed the Empress was leading their people in the wrong direction. They wanted to take as a hostage. They wanted to force her mother to step down from the throne. They had failed because of one human. The court watched in silence as the assassins were sentenced. Their titles were taken away. Their families were shamed. They would spend the rest of their long lives in a prison on a frozen moon far from home. But that was not the announcement that shocked everyone. When the trial ended, the Empress stood from her throne. She raised her hand and the entire court became silent. Even the air seemed to stop moving. "I have another announcement," she said. Her voice filled the enormous room without effort. Park stepped forward. Walked to the center of the room. His wounds had healed, but he still moved carefully. Hundreds of alien eyes watched him, some curious, some angry, some confused. What was happening? Why was the human being called before the throne? The Empress looked down at him. Her starlight skin was calm purple. Her sun-gold eyes were warm. "You are not of our blood," she said. "You are not of our world. You came to us as a stranger from a species we barely knew existed. And yet, when my daughter was in danger, you protected her with your life. Not once, twice." She paused. The court waited. "Among my people, such actions have meaning. They create bonds that cannot be broken. They weave threads that last beyond death." She stepped down from her throne, walking toward him slowly. "You are no longer a stranger, Park. You are no longer a guest." She stopped in front of him. Up close, he could see the tiny stars moving beneath her skin. He could feel the warmth radiating from her body. "I name you Shield of the Imperial Air," she said loudly, so everyone could hear. "Voice of the human species in the court, and welcome member of the Imperial household." The court erupted in whispers. This had never happened before. A human in the Imperial household, given titles, given power, given a place among the stars. Some nobles looked angry, some looked shocked, some looked like they were going to be sick. But most of them simply looked at with new eyes. This small, fragile creature had defeated 3 trained assassins by himself. He had stood between death and his charge without hesitation. He had earned his place with blood and bravery. Maybe humans were not as weak as they seemed. Bowed his head, just a little, a sign of respect, not submission. "I accept," he said. "Thank you, Empress." She said quietly, so only he could hear, "When we are alone, you may call me." He looked up at her in surprise. Her skin flickered gold for just a moment. Before he could respond, a small body crashed into his legs. Threw her arms around him, her skin blazing so bright it was almost hard to look at. "Ho stays forever," she shouted in her musical voice. "Forever and ever." The serious mood of the court broke. Some nobles laughed. Others smiled despite themselves. Even the guards seemed to relax. Picked up and held her close. She put her small arms around his neck and hummed a happy song against his shoulder. "Forever," he agreed. That evening, after the ceremony and the feast and the endless congratulations from nobles who suddenly wanted to be his friend, found himself in the palace gardens. He stood at the edge of a floating island, looking down at the silver ocean far below. 3 moons hung in the purple sky. Footsteps approached behind him. He knew who it was before she spoke. "You could still leave," said. She stood beside him, her silver robes flowing in the wind. "I told your Galactic Union you were dead, but that could be corrected. They would be happy to know you survived. You could go back to your old life." Was quiet for a long moment. He thought about Earth, about his mother who had received his message and cried tears of joy, About his old apartment, his old ship, his old routine. "Why did you really keep me here?" he asked. "In the beginning, before the attack, before I proved myself, why?" Did not answer right away. Her starlight skin flickered through several colors before settling on a deep, soft blue. "Because my daughter loves you," she said finally. "Because you made her feel safe when the universe had taught her to be afraid. Because," she paused, "because I have ruled alone for 20 years. I have protected my people. I have raised my daughter. I have made 1,000 difficult choices, but I have not felt safe in all that time. Not once." She turned to look at him. Her golden eyes were not burning now. They were soft, vulnerable. "When you stood in front of those soldiers on your tiny ship, protecting with your body, I saw something I had forgotten existed. Goodness without purpose, bravery without reward, love without condition." She smiled slightly. "You reminded me what it feels like to trust." Looked at her for a long time. This empress of 1,000 worlds. This mother who loved her daughter. This lonely woman who had forgotten how to ask for help. "I was a pilot," he said. "I traveled the galaxy for 10 years, visited dozens of worlds, saw beautiful things and terrible things, but I never found anywhere that felt like home." "And now," a small voice called from the garden behind them. "Ho, Mama, come see, the flowers are singing." They both turned. Was running toward them through a field of glowing flowers, her skin bright gold with joy, her 4 silver eyes shining like stars. Smiled, it was a real smile, the kind he had not felt on his face in years. "I think home was never a place," he said. "I think it was always people, and I spent so long looking for a place that I forgot to look for people who might want to keep me." Skin shifted to warm, gentle gold, the color of deep affection, the color of family. "Then stay, Park," she said. "Stay and be home for us, as we will be home for you." Reached them and grabbed both their hands, pulling them toward the singing flowers. She was laughing, making her bell-like sounds that meant pure happiness. Let himself be pulled along. He looked at the purple sky, the 3 moons, the floating islands that still seemed like a dream. He looked at glowing gold. He looked at, walking beside him with a soft smile on her face. He had been lost for so long, lost in space, lost in loneliness, lost in a life that felt empty no matter how far he traveled. But he was not lost anymore. He was home. And in the years that followed, stories about Park spread across the galaxy. Stories about the human who saved a princess. The human who fought like a storm despite his fragile body. The human who taught the Empire that strength was not about size or power or living forever. Strength was about standing in front of those you love, no matter what. They learned that lesson well, and whenever anyone asked them about humans, they would smile their strange starlight smiles and say the same thing. They are small, they are fragile, they do not live very long. But give them someone to love, and they become the most stubborn, loyal, and unbreakable species in the entire universe. We found one once. We are never letting him go.